Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in history, great nations are tested not by their weaknesses, but by how fiercely others try to contain their rise. Today, I speak about one such moment, when Trump tried to corner India. When a nation or an individual faces pressure, it reveals what they're truly made of. When Trump tried to corner India through trade barriers, sanctions, and political maneuvering, it seemed like an attempt to weaken the country's growth momentum. But what truly happened was the opposite. The pressure became a catalyst for transformation. India didn't react with fear or submission. It responded with focus, clarity, and innovation. Pressure has a strange way of bringing out hidden potential, just like a diamond is formed under extreme pressure. A nation's greatness is often born through challenges. Trump's tactics, imposing tariffs on Indian goods, questioning defense deals, and tightening global economic space, were intended to restrict India's rise. Yet, these very actions pushed India to diversify its partnerships, strengthen its domestic industries, and become more self-reliant. When the world expected India to slow down, it sped up. Businesses began to look inward, exploring how to reduce dependency on foreign imports and build stronger local ecosystem. This wasn't just an economic shift, it was a mindset shift. Indian entrepreneurs, policymakers, and citizens started to realize that true freedom doesn't come from global approvals. It comes from inner strength. Pressure taught India that it cannot rely solely on external allies or global goodwill. It must create its own destiny. Driven by innovation and resilience, this lesson is universal. In business, in life, in leadership, pressure is not your enemy. It's your trainer. It tests your limits, reshapes your thinking, and prepares you for higher battles. When Trump's administration tried to corner India, it forced the country to think creatively, to strategize differently, and to upgrade its capabilities. It was no longer about survival. It was about evolution. Every sanction, every diplomatic challenge became a signal for India to build something stronger, smarter, and more independent. India's digital rise during this period is a perfect example. With limited support and mounting global competition, India invested heavily in technology, digital infrastructure, and start-up innovation. What began as a challenge turned into a digital revolution. Today, India stands as one of the leading tech powerhouses in the world, exporting not just products, but talent and ideas. The pressure that was meant to confine it actually expanded its horizons. This phenomenon happens to all of us. The moments when you feel cornered are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to develop you. When external forces test your limits, they're unknowingly shaping your future strength. Just like India, you have to learn how to turn every bit of pressure into progress, every no into a new strategy, every challenge into a chapter of growth. That is the ultimate lesson from this story. Pressure never defeats those who are prepared to learn from it. It doesn't stop those who are willing to grow beyond it. What was meant to corner India ended up carving a stronger, sharper, and more confident version of it, ready not just to survive global politics, but to lead the future. Self-reliance is not just a policy. It is the heartbeat of independence. When Trump tried to corner India through economic pressure and diplomatic tactics, he unknowingly sparked a fire that reignited India's pursuit of self-sufficiency. Instead of bending under pressure, India turned inward, rediscovering its own capabilities and redefining its priorities. The message was clear. The future belongs to nations that control their production, technology, and destiny. India's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat was not just a slogan, it became a movement of empowerment, innovation, and self-confidence. It reminded the world that dependency makes you vulnerable, but self-reliance makes you unstoppable. When the US increased tariffs and disrupted trade balances, many expected India to struggle. But rather than panicking, Indian leaders and entrepreneurs took it as a wake-up call. They realized that true power comes from building within. Industries began focusing on indigenous manufacturing, reducing import dependency, and investing in local technology. The government encouraged start-ups, digital infrastructure, and small businesses to scale up. The message echoed across every sector. India would not be cornered by external pressure. It would rise through internal strength. Self-reliance became a national mindset, inspiring millions to believe that India could compete globally not by imitation, but through innovation. This transition wasn't just economic, it was emotional and cultural. For decades, India looked outward for validation and support, but this phase taught it to trust its own potential. The youth began to see entrepreneurship not as risk, but as a responsibility. Farmers started adopting technology. Engineers built indigenous defense systems. The world began to notice that India was no longer waiting for global solutions. It was creating its own. The same pressure that aimed to weaken India became the trigger that made it bolder. Self-reliance also taught India the importance of resilience. Global politics can change overnight. Alliances can shift, and promises can break. But the foundation of a nation built on self-reliance remains unshakable. When you create your own supply chains, develop your own technologies, and educate your own people to lead, you become immune to manipulation. India learned to build what it needed, trade on its own terms, and think long term. This independence gave India a new kind of confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. It was the confidence of a nation that no longer needed to depend on the mercy of others. In life and business, the same principle applies. When people try to limit you, don't chase their approval. Build your own path. Relying on others for success makes you easy to control, but when you invest in yourself, no one can take that power away. India's story under Trump's pressure is a reminder that self-reliance is not isolation. It's liberation. It means standing tall, even when others try to push you down. It's about knowing that your strength lies not in what others give you, but in what you build for yourself. India didn't just survive the attempt to be cornered, it became uncornerable. Diplomacy is not about submission, it is about strategy, intelligence, and balance. When Trump tried to corner India through his America First policies, what unfolded was a masterclass in diplomatic strength. India faced a leader who believed in transactional politics, alliances driven by benefit, not friendship. Yet, instead of responding with confrontation, India responded with composure and calculation. This is where true leadership shines, not in reacting emotionally, but in thinking several moves ahead. There, India managed to maintain strong relations with the United States while simultaneously strengthening ties with other global powers like Russia, Japan, and the European Union. It showed the world that diplomacy is not the art of pleasing everyone. It's the art of standing firm while keeping everyone at the table. Trump's administration often used pressure as a tool, whether it was trade tariffs, defense negotiations, or international policy disagreements. But India's approach was grounded in patience and principle. It refused to compromise on national interest while keeping dialogue open and respectful. Rather than engaging in a war of words, Indian leaders practiced silent strength, proving that calmness in diplomacy often has more power than aggression. Every global player noticed that while others argued, India negotiated. While others reacted, India planned. This quiet confidence became India's diplomatic signature. The most striking aspect of this phase was how India turned a potentially divisive situation into an opportunity to assert its independence on the world stage. Instead of being drawn into one camp, India positioned itself as a bridge between competing powers, a nation that could speak to Washington, Moscow, and Beijing at once. This balancing act was not luck. It was the result of decades of cultivating relationships and building credibility. India showed that real diplomacy is not about choosing sides. It's about choosing stability. It was a reminder that nations, like people, earn respect not by shouting, but by showing strength in silence. Even when Trump's administration suspended certain trade privileges and applied economic pressure, India remained composed. It engaged in tough talks, defended its interests, and still maintained cooperation where it mattered on defense, counterterrorism, and global security. That's what true diplomacy is, the ability to protect your interests while preserving relationships. It's a delicate balance of firmness and flexibility. India mastered this art during that period, proving that being cornered diplomatically is only possible when you lack strategy. And India had plenty of it. For anyone leading a business, a team, or even their own life, this diplomatic lesson is golden. There will be times when people try to pressure you, control you, or push you into corners. The key is not to fight every battle emotionally, but to think strategically. Learn when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to act. India's calm yet confident diplomacy under pressure showed that real power doesn't shout. It moves with precision. In the end, Trump tried to corner India, but India's smart diplomacy turned that corner into a circle of strength, where every path led back to respect and partnership. When a nation or a person is cornered, their true strength is revealed. During the period when Trump tried to corner India through political and economic tactics, the world witnessed not weakness, but character. India did not react impulsively or emotionally. Instead, it stood tall, calm, and determined. This moment in history became a test of resilience, a chance for India to prove that character. Not convenience defines greatness. There, every attempt to apply pressure only exposed how deeply rooted India's strength truly was. The country showed that challenges do not define you. How you respond to them does. Trump's policies aimed to push India into making quick compromises, whether on trade, defense, or international alignment. But India understood something fundamental. Bending under pressure may bring short-term peace, but standing firm brings long-term respect. Rather than playing the role of a submissive ally, India acted as a confident partner. It engaged diplomatically, argued logically, and moved forward strategically. This kind of response doesn't come from politics. It comes from character. It comes from a nation that has learned through centuries of struggle that endurance is more powerful than aggression. In moments of tension, character is tested through patience. India did not rush to retaliate or criticize. It took time to analyze, to understand, and to act wisely. The leadership focused on maintaining dignity while defending national interest. This was not weakness, it was wisdom. In every meeting, every negotiation, and every international statement, India showed restraint, confidence, and purpose. That balance between calmness and assertiveness became the foundation of its strength. The real beauty of character is that it shines the brightest when the lights are dim. During the Trump era, when global attention was often focused on conflict and dominance, India's quiet composure earned it admiration. The world started seeing India as a mature, responsible power, a nation that could lead with stability when others led with aggression. This is why challenges are so important. They don't break you, they reveal you. Just as fire reveals the strength of gold, pressure reveals the strength of a nation's soul. India's response was not about proving superiority. It was about proving stability. It didn't fall into the trap of ego or hostility. It demonstrated that real power lies not in reacting quickly, but in responding wisely. This principle applies beyond nations. It applies to people too. When life corners you, your reaction defines your future. Those who panic lose direction. Those who stay calm find solutions. India's ability to remain composed under Trump's pressure became a symbol of leadership for the modern world. It reminded everyone that true strength is not loud, it is disciplined. What began as an attempt to corner India turned into a moment of revelation. The world saw a nation guided by vision, patience, and moral clarity. India didn't just defend its position, it elevated it. The test of character became a demonstration of power, proving that no force, no matter how strong, can shake a nation or a person that knows who they are and what they stand for. Respect is not demanded, it is earned through consistent strength and integrity. When Trump tried to corner India, what emerged was not submission but stature. India's calm and confident response to external pressure transformed how the world viewed it. For decades there, India was often seen as a developing nation finding its place in global politics. But this episode marked a shift. It showed that India had matured into a power that others could no longer dictate terms to. It could only be treated as an equal partner. The world began to recognize that India's voice carried weight, not just because of its population or economy, but because of its principled strength and stability. Trump's strategy was built on dominance. His administration sought to challenge allies, to extract better deals and impose American priorities. But India was not a nation that could be bullied. It listened, negotiated, and pushed back when necessary, always keeping national interest at the center. This balance between firmness and diplomacy earned global admiration. While other nations sometimes faltered under similar pressure, India showed a unique resilience. It didn't engage in confrontation, yet it never compromised on its dignity. That balance became a lesson for the world. A demonstration that quiet confidence is more powerful than loud defiance. Throughout this period, India continued to strengthen ties with multiple global players. It expanded its presence in the Indo-Pacific region, signed defense agreements with other nations, and built economic partnerships that diversified its influence. Instead of being isolated, India became more connected. This was the irony of Trump's attempt. His pressure intended to corner India only highlighted its importance on the world stage. Global powers realized that India was not a player to be pushed around. It was a pillar of balance in an increasingly polarized world. The respect India earned during this phase wasn't through words, but through actions. It showed maturity by focusing on long-term vision rather than short-term reaction. This composure in global politics mirrored the inner strength of its people, the same strength that has carried India through centuries of change and challenge. Respect grows when a nation or a person refuses to abandon its values even when under pressure. India's ability to remain grounded in its principles while engaging with a strong US administration showed a rare blend of humility and confidence. This lesson extends beyond politics into leadership and life. People will test you. They will challenge your resolve, question your ability, and sometimes try to overpower you. The moment you choose not to bend for convenience, you earn their respect. Power built on fear fades quickly, but power built on dignity lasts. India's experience under Trump's administration proved this truth. By standing tall and acting with wisdom, it didn't just defend its position, it elevated it. The world began to view India not as a follower, but as a force of balance and stability. When you stand firm on your values, the world eventually learns that you are not to be cornered. You are to be respected. When Trump tried to corner India, what was meant to be a setback became a spark that ignited a new era of opportunity. Instead of feeling trapped, India turned the challenge into a chance to redefine its direction. Every act of pressure, from trade restrictions to diplomatic tests, pushed India closer to transformation. It was as if the storm that came to shake the nation only taught it how to fly stronger. India realized that adversity is not the end of the road. It's often the beginning of reinvention. By focusing on innovation, digital growth, and industrial expansion, India turned global uncertainty into national confidence. This moment didn't weaken India, it awakened it. The period of tension accelerated India's journey toward modernization. Programs like Digital India and Make in India gained greater urgency and attention. Entrepreneurs began exploring homegrown solutions. Industries invested more in local production. And the government started building stronger digital and physical infrastructure. Instead of depending on foreign imports and global approval, India chose to trust its own capabilities. The economy began to diversify, and new partnerships emerged with nations that valued mutual growth over dominance. What began as a test of endurance evolved into a movement of innovation and independence. India's space missions, advancements in artificial intelligence, and rising start-up ecosystem during this phase reflected this unstoppable momentum. When global powers tried to impose barriers, India built bridges between people, between industries, and between technology and vision. It was a turning point where India's energy shifted from reaction to creation. The message was clear: the more the world tried to limit India, the more India learned to lead. The country began shaping its destiny not around global pressure, but around global purpose. It wasn't just about survival, it was about emergence. This transformation carried a powerful message for every individual and nation. Progress does not come from comfort, it comes from challenge. Growth rarely happens when things are easy. It happens when circumstances force you to become better than you were yesterday. Trump's attempt to corner India unintentionally became the trigger that accelerated India's self-reliance and innovation. In facing obstacles, India discovered its next gear, a level of confidence that comes only through resilience. The same principle applies to anyone who has ever been underestimated or restricted. When others try to define your limits, use that pressure to redefine your potential. India's ability to turn pressure into possibility proved that no one can hold back a nation or a person who believes in their purpose. What was designed as a diplomatic and economic challenge became a foundation for India's global rise. The country emerged stronger, smarter, and more self-assured. It learned that the greatest opportunities are often disguised as obstacles. When you face resistance, it means you're moving forward. India didn't just survive Trump's attempt to corner it. It evolved into a nation ready to lead in technology, trade, and thought. From that point onward, India's story was no longer one of resistance. It became one of resurgence.